You're listening to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast, your podcast for escaping life's monotony, indulging in your wildest travel fantasies, and discovering the constant beauty of this ever-changing world.
On today's episode, Rachel Ingersoll comes back for part 2 of our 2-part series on Walt Disney World, answering questions about food, special events, and more.
Welcome to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. We are your navigators, Allison
And Regan, and welcome to another episode, a Travel Tuesday episode of the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. Today, we are going to be jumping into part 2, oh my goodness, can't wait, of our series on Walt Disney World. And Rachel is joining us again. Rachel Ingersoll is back to, chat through our next few topics, which I know is going to include Disney food, which I have a lot of strong opinions about, and I can't wait to hear Rachel's takes on everything. So let's just jump right in.
And then food. So many food options.
So much food. I am so excited for your thoughts.
We'll start with restaurants. So I've picked a few of the different parks. One park that's not technically a park, but is another place that's really cool to go is Disney Springs, which for folks who maybe went a long time ago used to be downtown Disney. And so that is more of like a shopping, restaurant, store-based area. And they have a lot of really good restaurants. They have some Jose Andres restaurants. For those folks who live in the DC area, we have a lot of Jose Andres restaurants in this area. My favorite by far is the Boathouse. I love, love, love everything about the Boathouse. You can get a nice inside reservation. Their brunch is fantastic. My mom is gluten intolerant, and they have really great gluten-free menus or ways to adjust foods to make them gluten-free that she can't normally get gluten-free, like a crab cake or things that normally are using gluten, wheat, that they can't take out. So that they have really great options for both vegan, gluten, vegetarian, all sorts of dietary restrictions. So their brunch is fantastic. And then my favorite thing to do is if you can't get a reservation or you don't know what time you're going to be able to get there, they have this little, I call it a dockside, outside back patio where it's first come, first served seating. And you can show up and walk through the restaurant out to the back deck that sits on the water. And if a table is open, you can sit there, and there's a bar as well. And you can order the same food that you do inside. And it's great that if you don't know, I tend to do that the day I fly in, if I'm going there for dinner, or maybe the day you're flying out and you don't know exactly your timing. That's a great option to just show up and see sort of what's available. And you can order the same things, and the drinks are super fun. And if the weather's nice, it's nice to sit outside. You can watch there are people who take it's a car boat sort of thing, and it's old fashioned, and there's someone driving people around, and you can see music and things that happen. So the Boathouse is always one I recommend. Their sliders are really, really good. So that's my favorite in Disney Springs. In Animal Kingdom, Yak and Yeti is my favorite sit down restaurant. They have such a variety of food that's always churning in and out. It's a great way to get out of the heat and sit in the AC. Any of their fried rice dishes are fantastic. I know they rotate a lot of those in and out. So that is my favorite. And then my favorite quick service in Animal Kingdom is Satuli Canteen. I had it for the first time a few months ago. And they have a great combination of semi-healthy dishes or plant-based dishes, as well as other meat dishes. You can kind of get a little bit of whatever you're looking for, whether it's a salad or noodles, or they have really good cheeseburger bao buns. Those are fantastic. So that's a great way, if you don't have time or you don't know where you're planning and you have eaten all the chicken fingers and pretzels and fries that your heart can be content, and you're maybe just eat a salad, which was me at the end of my last trip, I would go to Satuli Canteen. In Magic Kingdom, Crystal Palace is my favorite, just because of the character interactions. It's such a cool place where Pooh, Tigger, Piglet, Eeyore, you don't have to stand in line and wait for them. They come around as you're eating, and you can have more immediate interactions with them, and you feel less rushed in your interactions with them. And so I wouldn't rate it super highly for oh my gosh, this is the best food I've ever eaten, but more of the ambiance of the experience of it makes it a really cool restaurant. One restaurant that does have fantastic food is actually outside the parks at Disney's Contemporary Resort, and it's called Steakhouse 74. We went for my friend's birthday dinner this past January, and the food was so good. It is slightly pricier. It was our nice, fancier meal. But what we did is before our reservation, we went outside, like on the patio, and watched the Magic Kingdom fireworks from the Contemporary before our meal. So there's certain things that you can do if you don't have a park entry for a certain day, but you want to eat at a cool restaurant. You can go if you have a reservation at the hotels, and you can go and explore the hotels and then go to your food reservation. And that's a great way to like take a day off. Say if you're there for a full week at Disney and you're not doing the parks every day because that's exhausting, but you still want like those small touches of Disney. Those are my favorites. So those are some of my favorite restaurants. Snacks. I love the blue milk in Galaxy's Edge. People will have the massive debate of blue versus green milk. I am a blue milk girly for life. And that is great because when it gets really hot, you can just take your little blue milk and you can wander around. So that's a fun snack. I also got a lightsaber churro when I was there for May the 4th, which is not a regular, but it was fantastic. And then I have to go to the classics, Mickey Ice Cream Bar and Mickey Pretzel. Like those are just my go-to classics. Anytime I visit, I have to get one of those in the parks, and I recommend them always.
Yeah. Oh, the Mickey pretzels. Makes my heart so happy. That's fantastic. Man, oh man. I think that's part of what makes Disney not just like the kids' playground that so many people think of it as. It's like you were saying, it's the details of your surroundings, and it's like there is so much creativity in food in these parks. And it has been such a joy to become old enough to be able to purchase my own food and explore that, because it's completely a part of the experience at this point. Like you have to. It's so good.
Exactly. And especially if you're there for a festival. So in Epcot, they do a food and wine festival every fall-ish time frame, and the food is always so good. There is always this, well, when I was just there for, even Flower and Garden has a lot of cool food stands, and the street corn, anytime there's a street corn, get it. It's so good. But there's always
rules for life.
Yes. There's just so many good foods to try. So with all of the festivals, I always check out the unique food menus, because you can go to the restaurants anytime, but the food at the festivals changes every year. And sometimes they're only there for like a month period of the festival or something like that. So I got a violet lemonade for the first time when I went in May, and it was fantastic. Everyone always raves about the violet lemonade, but it's things like that. Sometimes things are just seasonal, so it's cool to know if you're looking into planning a trip. Am I going during a specific festival? If so, look at the massive food menu. My mom found someone online made this whole gluten-free menu of everything that was gluten-free in the Flower and Garden Festival. So before she went, she printed it out. She marked up what she wanted. So that way she wasn't having to play a guessing game when we got there of like, I don't know if that's gluten-free or not. And like having to talk to somebody and do that whole thing. So there are people who are compiling all of that outside of Disney who are just other fun Disney loving people. So if you do have some sort of allergy or things like that, don't let that hinder you in wanting to try some of, especially the festival food.
Yeah, you read my mind, because I was going to ask about the festivals and the different foods. So now I need to come up with a different question. I guess my next question is, what like unique experiences have you had? I know you've done like Run Disney. Have you done like the after hours or any special events at Disney at all?
Yeah, so I'll start with Run Disney, and then I'll do a few of the after hours events. So I ran my first ever Run Disney event back in 2017 when I was in grad school. I like took out after class on Friday and like came back before class on a Monday, had like a real quick long weekend trip to run. But I ran the dark side half back in 2017, and that's back when they used to separate the dark side and the light side races. One used to be in the fall, one used to be in the spring. They don't do that anymore. It's just one big race if they have it related to Star Wars. And that was so much fun. I ran it by myself, but I had a friend who worked in the parks who I like saw before and after. It's just such a cool event. I had just started to pick up running, so it's a great event for someone who's new to running all the way up through the most experienced runner. It's the most fun atmosphere I've ever had. Here, I'll lay a picture. When you get to your corrals, before every wave kicks off, they like do a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and they shoot off fireworks from the top of the like start area, which is just fun. It also starts at like 5 a.m. So it is very early because we have to do it before the parks open. So that's the only like sidebar, and that makes staying on property an extra added bonus because they have transportation from the resorts to the Run Disney event. So if you're staying off property, you do have to figure out how the heck to park and do that whole rigmarole. So I highly recommend staying on property if you are running an event, because trying to figure out where you need to go at 2:33 in the morning is not.
Does not sound fun. No, thank you.
Yeah, and then during COVID, I was supposed to run the Wine and Dine 10K with a friend, and that ended up being virtual because of COVID. So I ended up just running with a friend locally in the DC area and like playing Disney music in my ears, which is not as fun as Disney, but was still fun. And then I ran a virtual 5K. It was for like the Lion King based like 5K series a few years ago, and a friend and I was visiting her in Charlotte, and she also signed up for the race, and we decided to like run the downtown of Charlotte for our 5K. So we like chose a fun destination and like ran it together and like had our Disney music playing. So those ones I hadn't done in person because I COVID, but were cool to still be able to do virtually. And then the most recent one I did was the Walt Disney World Half Marathon, which is part of the Marathon Weekend series, which is in January every year. Best weather, best time of year to run a race, January. It is 55 degrees. It was perfect. That was a more fun race because I was a more seasoned runner at that point, and I also had a friend who ran with me for that race, and everything was still decorated for the holidays. So that was one of the first races where they set the course through Magic Kingdom. Normally when you run a half marathon, at least pre-COVID, you ran through Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and Epcot. And only the marathon runners got to run through Magic Kingdom. It was like a rite of passage. And then coming out of COVID, they changed it so the half marathon and marathon people would both run through Magic Kingdom. But getting to run through Main Street with it still like dimly lit, all of the Christmas lights are on, there are spectators on the side like cheering you on, there are bands, and you're running through all the different lands, and you run through the back underneath of the castle through the very front of the castle. And there's a photographer there who got the best picture of me like with my hands up and mouth open, and it's got the 50th logo on the castle, and the castle's lit up. So that's a super cool thing to get to do, because when else are you gonna be there in that sort of environment with just people cheering you on? And there are characters out that aren't normally out that you can take pictures with. So some people aren't in it for the time and are literally just take pictures along the way and meet and see all the fun events and like things that are happening around it. And then even before the race, there tend to be photo ops or things with characters depending on the theme of the race. And then afterwards, there's a bunch of booths with merchandise and free food and more photo ops and things like that. So it's like a whole event. And then it's a rite of passage that if you ran a race, to like wear your medal to the park whatever day you go in like the days following your race. And I tend to take mine to the parks that I ran through and like take a picture with the medal in the parks that I ran through. So I have the pictures of like during the race and then after the race with the medal. And that's just a cool thing, because then you see people who ran like the dopey challenge who have like 4 or 5 medals, who ran the 5K, the 10K, the half, and the full marathon, and you're like, my body would collapse. And I'm so impressed that I always think I could do it, and then my knees are like, you just ran a half, maybe not. It's a whole environment, and it's great if you're just picking up running, or if you're not a competitive runner but you want to do something with family or friends. It's such a great way to just be in a fun atmosphere, as especially like it could be a fun family race, it could be a fun race with your friends. It's kind of, you see people of all ages, like there's always someone who dresses up as Jack Sparrow who like runs in the full costume for no matter how long, half marathon, 5K, 10K, you'll see my homeboy running in full Jack Sparrow gear, no matter the heat, no matter the temperature. Like, you'll see him out there. I've passed him a few times where he's passed me, and I'm like, you go. So people dress up in all sorts of fun costumes depending on the theme, and it's fun to people watch. It's a fun people watching environment, even if you're just being a spectator. It's a good time.
Oh, that sounds like, I hate running. I'm like a spin girl, so I feel like cardio. I could make it work for Disney. Yeah, I can walk a 5K.
Run walk combination, totally. As long as the balloon ladies don't get you. You have to keep, I think it's a 16-minute per mile pace. And there are people, they call them the balloon ladies at the very end who are like, this is the last point in which you can be on this course because they have to open the parks and remove everything. So you do have to keep it within 16 minutes per mile, which is like, you could 3/4 walk.
I could do that
most of the time at that pace. And then you also asked about after hours or special ticketed events. So the only event I've been to, like, that's special ticketed is Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. My brother and I went 2 years ago because he wanted to spend the bulk of our time in Hollywood Studios. He's a big Star Wars fan. He likes the bigger ride, so Magic Kingdom was less of an appeal for him, but he still wanted to be able to see Magic Kingdom. So this was a great way to balance time in Magic Kingdom, but also, like, a cool event. We dressed up as Jedis and, like, took pictures all around the park. With Mickey's Not So Scary, you're allowed to wear costumes of characters that you wouldn't be able to as an adult, like, in the normal day-to-day hours of the park. So I had like a full Rey cosplay with my lightsaber and did the whole thing. But there's special foods. You get to do trick-or-treating. So they give you a little bag upon walking in, and there are different like trick-or-treating stations you can go to. They have the Boo to You parade, which is a special parade where the Headless Horseman will ride, and everyone, that's like the big thing to see. And if it's too rainy or too thunderstormy, he like won't ride. So it's like a big deal when Headless Horseman gets to ride. And it's cool to see so many different like villain characters or just like characters from movies that tend to be associated with Halloween. It's a whole different parade than you get to see in the daytime hours. And they also have a different stage show that has the Sanderson sisters and Oogie Boogie and some other characters from more of the Halloween based stories that again you don't get to see. And then they have a specific like fireworks and castle show that like projects different Halloween related things and has like a spooky overlay of music, and it's just a completely different fireworks show. So you get to, if you go to these events, you do get to see special things like that you wouldn't necessarily see. And they do overlay certain rides every year with like Halloween based things. So on the teacups, they like change the music and the lighting to be like a little eerie and spooky. They added additional things to like Pirates of the Caribbean. They had live actors of people in there like chatting to each other or like yelling things at you that were like really funny related to pirates. Or like as you're walking through the queue, there was someone like playing music behind like the bars as if they're in jail, like playing the harmonica, or like just more interactive elements to the ride that like gave it a Halloween sort of feel. And even I think they added things to Haunted Mansion that like made it even spookier. So you got to experience the rides a bit differently too. I can't speak to what they do for some of the other after hours events, but I've always wanted to do, I don't remember what the Christmas time one is called, but that's one of the ones I've always wanted to get to go to because I love the holiday time. I've gotten to go when Magic Kingdom is like decorated, but haven't been there for the actual like merry Christmas party. So that's definitely on my list, hopefully sometime in the near future.
Yeah.
Technically not special events, but if you go on events where, or like days where it's a big celebration in Disney. So for example, I was in Galaxy's Edge over May the 4th, and that's like not technically a special event, but they have special food. Sometimes they have special character interactions, different merchandise drop for May the 4th, and the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace merch drop that day. So there are certain things that happen around events, or like I went to Ahsoka Tano Day, and Ashley Eckstein, who is the original voice actor of the animated Ahsoka, came to the parks and like took photos with big groups of people at night with everyone's lightsabers, and like they made a whole like event out of it, even though it wasn't like a paid extra hours event. So there are still cool things that go around on specific days. I think a lot of the times related to Star Wars because there are so many fans that are like, let's organize this, and they have to talk to Disney to like organize it. But those are cool things that like if you want to be involved in that sort of realm, that's something you can do in addition to an after hours event.
Yeah, there's always something. There's like, I feel like all the time I'm getting blog posts and I'm getting all these things of like 30 new snacks coming today or whatever there's
Disney
always
food
something.
blog said so many updates.
Yes.
Like, okay, what's new? Like, because you have to see like, what's coming out in the time you're going to be there. So like Lion King's anniversary is coming up, so I know they're dropping new food for that. So while I'm there in June, they're going to be having some special related festival food. So yeah, if you're planning a trip, definitely look around. Try to avoid spring break. March to mid-April. I went one time and associated with a work trip. Do not do it. There are so many humans, and they have so many performances for like cheerleading teams. There's always big competitions in the spring and things like that. And then any major holiday, if you are, or a Run Disney event. If you're not running a Run Disney event, there tend to be a lot more people in the parks like right before and right after and during Run Disney event weekends. So my favorite time to go is mid-January, because the first weekend in January is normally the Walt Disney World Marathon weekend. And then the Princess Half is normally in mid-February. So if you can go like during Festival of the Arts, which is Epcot's like arts related festival, which tends to be mid-January to mid-February, perfect time to go. The temperature is good. You're not sweating. I was able to do so much because I feel like I was not hot. Arts is one of my favorite festivals in all of the Epcot festivals. I was a dancer in a former life, and I love everything related to the performing arts. So they have the Disney Broadway concert series. So they bring people from the different prior performances or Broadway casts that were related to Disney shows, and they'll come and they'll alternate different nights of the week who is singing, and they tend to be in duos, which is super cool. So you'll see those in the evenings in the America Pavilion area. They have different like artistic and acrobatic performances. They have a lot of local artists, a lot of local artwork, drawings. Thomas Kincaid's work was there, like just the most stunning, beautiful artwork I've ever seen. And then they always have something that's a paint by number. So they every few days they rotate like what mural is up, and you can get a paintbrush and paint, and you can paint certain squares, and at the end they'll give you a bookmark of like what the whole mural is going to look like. So that's a super fun thing, and they just have small creative things that are interactive that makes it a lot of fun, but it's also not hot, so you actually have the time to enjoy and explore during that time, and it tends to be less crowded during that time of year as well. So this past year was the first time I went in January outside of like race weekend where there's more people, and it was great. The weather cannot be beat. Like mid to late November weather through February weather is the best at Disney. If you're not good with the heat, stick to those months and avoid the holidays.
The holidays are beautiful, but I am with you, and I'm hoping to go for the Festival of the Arts in 2025. So it sounds like I've got the right idea here, according to Rachel. And we've gotten so much amazing information from you, and in-depth on Disney World, which is exactly what we were hoping for, and you delivered, and it was great. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. This is a destination that I think a lot of people want to know about, but are sometimes intimidated by. And I really think that you gave them a lot of information to be confident moving forward with your magical vacation. So thank you. And we just have our Travel Blitz segment here. So we're going to do our Travel Blitz. Everybody, if you have not been here before, we're going to ask Rachel some rapid fire questions. And the first thing that comes to her head, all travel related, she's just going to say what comes to her head. And if you have identified with Rachel's maybe style of travel or anything like that over the course of this episode, this is a great opportunity for you to maybe hear some more suggestions from her. Someone that might be like your travel style. So, Allie, you want to kick us off with our first question?
Yes. So, what is your number one travel tip or hack?
Planning. Honestly, as a researcher, I am such a planner, and it's great to still have room to be spontaneous, but to have a foundation to be able to coordinate the humans and make sure that everyone will be happy and get something out of the trip. It's different if you're planning like a solo or a 1-2 person trip than if you're planning for like a bunch of people. So figuring out like what your priorities are, even just what the group of humans you're traveling with, what your travel style is. For example, me, I like a combination of being active and relaxing. So finding out if you're traveling with people who like just want to lay on the beach all day. 10 out of 10, great for you. Do it. I love that. I also want to go hiking. I also want to explore town, try out different foods. You have to sort of plan with people what that looks like, and that'll make everyone happier with the outcome of the trip.
Yep. Music to my ears. All right. Second question coming at you. What are your top 3 favorite destinations that you have been to?
Ooh. So I was just talking, one of my coworkers just went to Italy, so I've been raving on Italy. The islands of Capri and the Cinque Terre in Italy are two of my favorite places I've ever been. My family and I hiked through some of the islands. The Cinque Terre is 5 islands that are all connected, and you can hike between them. You can also train between them if you are not a hiking human. We hiked between a few of them and then sat down by the water and had all this local food, and the colors, the vibrancy, the people, everyone was just so friendly. It's such a pretty place, and I love the water, the ocean. Anything by the water is count me in, which is why also we loved Capri. It's a 40 to 50 minute boat ride off the coast of Naples in southern Italy, and everything is surrounded by water. We did a boat tour of the island, got to go into like cool grottos and caves, and then we took a bus to the very top point of the island where you take like a ski lift sort of gondola situation to be on the very top of the island, and you're like in the clouds and you can see the entire island. You see the clouds passing by. It's just such a unique experience that I've never been in a place where you can do so many things at sea level and then be on the top of a mountain in 15-20 minutes, and just there was so much to do and see, but it was also just such a relaxing, like, unique place to be. I also recently went to, so that counts as one because Italy in general. I went to India and Nepal at the beginning of 2023, and those are both very uniquely different places. In Nepal, we hiked the Annapurna Himalayan mountain range in the town of Pokhara, and we had a guide, and that was so unique because we also learned about the culture of the area. We literally hiked through like small mountain towns, and we got to talk and interact with locals. They like invited us to sit on their front porch while we waited for our car, and like just interactions I had never had before, of just like the friendliness of the culture of the people there, and tried so many local foods. I love momos now, which are similar to dumplings in a sense, but they're like the Nepalese version and how they locally cook their food. And I was just very surprised by the genuine friendliness and the welcomingness and like the willingness to share their culture. One of the things I love about travel is getting to really understand, deep dive into people's culture, whether that's music, food, dance, landscape, all of the above. And I got that in both Nepal and India. I went to India with my roommate and her family who are from there, so I had a bit more of a local experience. I also had street corn there, which is street corn is just a cheap street
Full
corn.
of life.
And I got to go to an Indian wedding, and just I had a lot of really unique experiences. Went to the Taj Mahal. We ended up catching our guide knew the one guy who owned like this hand rowed boat that you could get to go behind the Taj Mahal, and we hit it just at sunset. Like, just so many things aligned that made it such a it looks like it's a fake picture. I'll have to send it to you, or people, you can find it on my Instagram. But it just, every time I show it to someone, they're like, is that fake? Because it just looks so unreal, and it's not something my friend like saw it on a blog before we went and like randomly mentioned it to our guide while we were out doing something else, and he like called somebody who called somebody else, and just like the interconnectivity and the friendliness of the people and the willingness to share the culture was really, really cool. So those are two super unique places. I'm gonna say my last one is Barbados. It was the first place I ever got to do research when I was in college and sort of enter the world into what my job is now, and my love for getting to know people, how they think, why they do what they do, and how they make different behavioral choices. And I got to do that on the island, but I also experienced so much friendliness in interacting with the different people on the island, and just how different the landscape can be and how it was impacted through different historical contexts, and like how different the landscape is if you're on the beach on the south or the west side versus like the rough surf coast. I went cliff jumping on the east side, and you have to like watch out for rocks, and there's mountains that look like Ireland on the middle east side. And we just got to do so many different things and interact with the locals in such a unique way, because I was there for 3 weeks. So it wasn't like I was there for vacation. I was really getting to know and interact with a lot of the local people in all aspects of the different parts of the island. And so different people were doing different jobs as you sort of go throughout the island. And so that was a really unique experience. I've done a lot of Caribbean cruises or trips with my family, but nothing compared to really deep diving into a place and getting to know the people. And I was doing a comparison of health, wellness, and nutrition, as well as physical activity, and how it differed between Barbados and the United States. And so really getting to like talk to different people. I talked to nutritionists, people who ran nutrition magazines, doctors, people who worked and taught nutrition at the universities, really kind of getting a lot of different aspects, and then people who run like a lot of the more local restaurants and things like that. So I'm saying that as my last one just because it was such a unique experience, and every island in the Caribbean is so different. So anyone you go to, you can't lose. But it was
Yeah.
every time we go back there on a cruise or we stop there, I feel such like a connection to my time that I spent there, and it's been so foundational in where my life is now and like what I do for a living. And so I think that it was just very cool to kind of make that full circle as a travel moment in my life.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
That was
cool.
not a short answer. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
That's okay.
It's okay. This is what we do. This is like where we thrive, is like talking about travel. We're like, yes, let's do it.
Good company.
Yeah, it's a great pitch to get yourself back on the podcast too. So,
Mhm.
Absolutely. I was like, I have many things to talk about.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. We still have a couple more questions. So, what are the top 3 destinations that you want to go to?
Ooh, okay. So I have always wanted to go to Egypt. My mom and I have been fascinated by Egyptian culture for as long as I can remember. When I was in 8th grade, we came to DC, and they had this huge King Tut exhibit where they like put his face all over the Smithsonian stairs, and they had his tomb. And I've just been fascinated by such a young age. And my mom and I used to watch all the History Channel things about it. So I'm hoping one day when it's a little safer and I can like find a guide and maybe a group of people to go with, that would be a super cool adventure to get to go to. So that's number 1. Number 2, I want to explore a lot more of Asia. So Japan has been on my list because I had done so much research into it when I was supposed to travel there for work, and I didn't end up going, that I have these like pre-plans of like, I had one of my boss went there for her honeymoon. So she gave me all these tips and things to do. And I have other friends who've like been there. So I've compiled a list of like a lot of things. I just logistically need to figure out. I'm transitioning work teams and some responsibilities. So I'm like, maybe 25 or 26, I'll make it out there and can plan the right time to tack on Tokyo Disney. But yeah, I think Japan as a whole is an area I've wanted to go to and just try a lot of different foods. And then definitely Greece. Greece has been on my list for so long. It's a good combination of like relaxing and exploring and cool like historical culture context. I've heard nothing but good things from friends who have gone to Greece. And then Croatia. I have a friend who lives in Germany, and she just raves and raves and raves about Croatia. There's some really great hiking there. I'm avid hiker, so I really want to, that and Cape Town, South Africa, I really want to hike in and like be able to do a safari. So I would go everywhere. In Australia,
Yes.
so on my list, Australia, New Zealand. That is like you got to plan a 2-3 week endeavor to get all the way over there and do all of the things you want to do. But I had a work colleague who was stationed in New Zealand for a while, and he just raves about that area. So I've always wanted to do that too. It's just figuring out the time of work and like
Yes.
when it's like, if I know people there, people want to travel, I would go anywhere if somebody asked me. So
Oh yeah, it's a spin a
Those are
globe
definitely
and point situation. Yep,
I've
100%.
done a few different places in Europe already, so definitely tried to expand that reach a bit to other
Yeah.
continents.
Yeah. Oh, all good things. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. All right. Question number 4 here is, what is the strangest thing you've eaten while traveling?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I had, even domestically in New Orleans, I had alligator, which I think was a very interesting food choice. I had like, we got it, and I was there on a volunteer trip, and so like we got it and we like chopped it up so a bunch of people could like try a bite before like ordering if you wanted your own. It was almost like a slightly chewier version of chicken. It didn't taste as like strong as I don't know what I thought it was going to taste like, but I thought it was going to have like a stronger flavor to it, and it didn't. It tasted a bit more like chicken. It's kind of like if you're trying different fish and you're kind of like, oh, this one's a slightly less fishier version or a slightly more fishier version of this. It was kind of like that, where I was like, oh, this is a slightly chewier version of chicken. That I think is the most unique. I haven't tried a whole lot of other like exotic foods outside of the US just because I'm worried about getting some weird stomach. I don't have a great stomach, so I try to, even when I was in India, like 2 weeks in, I got some really weird stomach thing, I think, from the water.
Oh, fun.
you
Yeah,
you
that's
prep as much as you can. I had the medicine and like stuff if that was supposed to happen. So I tend to try to like share or try new things with other people or split different like tapas style dishes. I'm going to Iceland for my 30th birthday in August, and so I'm hoping they have shark and like maybe a few other things. And I'm like, maybe I would try a bite. I wouldn't order a whole entree of it, but maybe I would try a little bite of it.
Iceland is amazing.
Yeah, I'm
Can't
so
recommend it enough.
Incredibly excited. I hear nothing but good things from everyone. So should be okay.
Yay! Oh, so excited. Yeah.
All right, and then
one final question.
Yeah, our last one. The top thing you can't travel without, besides like the basics like a toothbrush. What's something you can't live with or can't travel without?
These noise canceling headphones. So the viewers, you are listening, you cannot see me, but I have my big noise canceling headphones on. That is the only reason I survived my flights to and from India. On the way back, I had a 6-hour flight and then a 15-hour flight, and there's no way I would have gotten any sleep or anything with any sort of crying human without these big old headphones. So whether you're watching a movie, like if you just put in your AirPods or like the things that they get you, sometimes even with the volume all the way up, you're kind of like, okay, I can't read without the subtitles or I can only partially hear. And these things just like cancel noise out the wazoo. So any sort of like big over the ear noise canceling headphones and a book. I always bring a book to read, and that just makes the time pass so much. It does take up room in your bag. Some people are Kindle people. I am such a hard copy book person, and I will shuffle around my luggage in order to bring it, and I will like donate one and leave it in a little library somewhere if I finish it while I'm on travel, or like pick a new one up somewhere. But those are two things that like make the time pass, in conjunction with my iPad, which I can pull up movies, music, downloaded shows. It also doubles as my noise canceling like white noise machine when I travel. So that drowns out most noises. And so those are the top things for sure.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. I love to talk about Disney World anytime, and just like hearing your experience and your thoughts and everything is giving me ideas for like other trips and everything. So like, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Of course. And if anyone has any like specific questions or thoughts about anything we've talked about today, feel free to reach out to me on my socials. I'm always happy to talk anything Disney. It makes me so happy to find other people who just love the whole world of Disney, and I'm happy to share any further tips and tricks if folks have questions.
Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you, Rachel, again, and everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. Come escape with us again every other Tuesday for Travel Tuesdays.
Don't forget to give us a subscribe and a follow on all of our social media and wherever you listen to your podcasts. And until next time, wander on.